Hello guys, thank you so much for clicking on this video and I hope you enjoy it. I had to change my intro because I would get a copyright email whenever I uploaded a video and it was getting very annoying. Sorry to disappoint anyone. I may re-upload part 1 and part 2 after this video because they have copyright strike because of the intro and it is affecting my channel a lot. I hope you guys try to understand. On to the part 3.
I ran into the lounge which was packed with people and looked all over the place, searching for IWHN but couldn't find him. It's not like he was going to be here anyway, he hates crowds, and I know that better than anyone else. I then spotted my teammates in a corner and ran over to them in a beat. Guys, I called out, they all turned to look at me. IWHN, Toru, Maki shouted, throwing himself at me. He hiccuped, I love you, he sang. What the hell, I shouted, pushing him away, making him fall on Matsun. I love my Matsu more anyway, he pouted, snuggling into his chest. Who let him drink? Yahaba asked, rubbing his temple. I didn't. Matsun held up his hands in defense. Guys listen, IWHN broke up with his girlfriend. Silence enveloped them as soon as the words left my mouth. Oh, Kunami said, finally, huh, I raised an eyebrow. You go guy, Maki shouted from the sofa. Go get your man. Yahaba slapped his hand to his mouth before he could complete. What was he going to say? I asked. And nonsense. He let out a nervous chuckle. He left the party. Please help me find him, I said, begging. There was silence again. Why you see, we have a little problem here. Matsun laughed nervously, referring to Maki's current condition, and you're the only one who understands him. Kunami said, I don't think he needs us as the moment, he needs you, but we've been so distant. He cut me off. So what? You've been distant for 3 months, does that ruin your 12 years of friendship? Don't make me laugh, he rolled his eyes. That's right, it may have come out rude, but it knocked some sense into me, and that's just how Kunami is anyway. I nodded at him and ran out of the door. He has to be here, he can't run away, he's probably at his house. I took my phone out of my pocket and dialed his number, waiting for him to pick it up, but he never did. Instead, he cut the call off. I dialed again and again, but he kept declining. That's when my blood started to boil. Does he even know the real me? Has he forgotten how clingy I am? Out of frustration, I started running. Running to his house. I don't care if it's late, I don't care if I go home past midnight, I don't care if his parents mind, or if he minds. He needs me, I have to be there for him. I know I've let him fall apart, I couldn't do a thing, but now I have to go and pick him up right off the ground. It was a 10 minutes run to IWHN's house and by the time I reached there, I was put of breath. I crouched down, my hands on my knees, panting. I rang the bell when I catched my breath again. No response. I waited for a bit and rung again. Still, there was no answer. All the lights of the house were turned off, despite the fact that it was only 10:30 p.m. I sighed, sliding my back against the door until my body finally touched the floor. I sat down, my arms wrapped around my legs, resting my head on my knees. It was really cold, and I had left my coat back at Suga's house in a rush. I sighed again and waited for him to come. I felt someone shaking me. Toru, I heard someone say in the distance and then felt someone lightly patting my cheek. Oi, Shirikawa. My eyes immediately snapped open at that word. He was in front of me, crouching. I looked at my surroundings and found myself laying on a couch in his lounge. He had brought me in, and covered me with a coat that I knew very well wasn't mine. You were asleep, he said, standing back up, and cold. He bit the inside of his bottom lip, his cheeks covered in what I assumed to be a light blush. Why? I cut him off and grabbed his arms, pulling him in a hug. He lost his balance and fell on top of me. What the hell? He said. I sat up, still not pulling away from the hug. There was a short pause, after which I felt his lightly putting his arms around my waist. You didn't have to come, he said. I did, I replied. He sighed, letting his head drop on my shoulder. You aren't crying, I pointed out. I've learned to not cry. His voice cracked midway. I'm here for you, I said, in case he had forgotten. You always have been. He mumbled something. What? I asked. Nothing, he said after a short pause. I felt like saying it. Should I say it? Will it change something? Will it ruin something? I didn't even give it a second thought and blurted out, I love you. I felt his whole body go stiff as soon as the words left my mouth. His body calmed down after a few moments. He didn't reply, but I felt the fabric on my shoulders dampening and I immediately knew that he was crying. There, I patted his head, as if I were comforting a little child. What took you so long? I then heard a muffled sob and I knew that he was forcing himself to not cry. I grabbed his face in my hands and made him look at me. He closed his eyes, tears still flowing down his cheeks. He bit his lip, trying to not let a sob out. I put my thumb on his lower lip and made him release it from his teeth. That gesture made him open his eyes. Oswell, why? He asked. Never be ashamed for your tears, I said, staring in his eyes. Cry and let your feelings out, cry, and let everyone know you're alive. I don't know why, but my words made him cry even more. He laid me down on the sofa and put his head in my neck, laying on top of me. IwaOi, I questioned. My heart was beating really loudly. What if he heard it? What will he think? Please, he said, let MW stay like this for a little while. I took in a deep breath and nodded, though I knew he couldn't see me. After a few minutes, I called out to him again. IwaOi, yeah, he said, getting up from me. Sorry for the sudden outburst, he mumbled. It's fine. It's nothing to apologize for. I gave him a bright smile. I think I should get going, now that you're okay. I smiled. Toru, he called out, can you stay the night? My eyes widened at his words. Just me? Not anyone else? He was only inviting me? Why, if you don't have a problem, he added after my silence. Yeah, I'll let my parents know. I chuckled as I called my mom and told her that I'd be staying the night with IwaOi. She agreed without any hesitation. What did she say? I gave him a smirk. Okay, he chuckled, shaking his head. Where are your parents? I asked. Business trip, he replied. It's a routine now. I'm used to sleeping alone. So why did you ask me to sleep over today? I accidentally voiced my thoughts. There was silence. He didn't reply and instead started making his way over to his room. Stupid Toru. Why did you have to ask him something so stupid? I pulled myself out of my thoughts and ran over to his room, not wanting to leave him alone even for the tiniest bit. He was standing in front of the window, staring at the night sky. I slowly made my way over to him and stood beside him, staring at the same sky at him. I needed you, he said all of a sudden. Huh? He looked up at me. I needed you, that's why I asked you to stay over, he said, looking back down. Is that selfish? No, I shouted. A little too loud. Absolutely not, I said. Slowly. His time. We don't have a futon, he pointed out. What? I looked at him. I can sleep on the couch. I looked around the room and there wasn't any couch in his room. Or maybe the lounge. I took a step towards the door but he grabbed my arm and turned me around. Is something wrong? We used to sleep together all the time as kids. He raised an eyebrow. Does he not realize it? I have to sleep in the same bed as him. We aren't kids anymore. Oh my god. And no, I smiled. I didn't want to bother him after all that he's been through today. IwaOi, do you have any separate clothes? My shirt's a little damp and I'm not used to sleeping in jeans. He cut me off. I know, he said and walked over to his closet. He took a white shirt and a pair of black shorts. He examined them for a bit before handing them over to me. That might be a little big for you, he said, referring to the shirt. It's fine, we're the same age, it can't be that big. I waved him off and went inside the bathroom to change. The shorts fit me perfectly but the shirt actually was big. Maybe too big. It'd keep sliding down my shoulder. I walked out the door, trying to keep the shirt from not falling down my shoulder. I dropped my clothes on the floor as soon as I saw what was in front of me. IwaOi was sitting on the bed, cross-legged and completely shirtless. The sound of my clothes dropping on the floor made him look up at me. Did it fit? He asked. And not really. I put my clothes on the back of the chair and climbed into the bed, making sure to keep a decent distance between us. Today was weird. It went from IwaOi shouting at me to me sleeping in his clothes, right beside him, but in the end, it didn't matter. In the end both of us were happy, together. It was almost as if we were in another world.
素晴らしいあなたし二人私の言うことし